fact checkers and fart knockers. I'm about to make a comparison between COVID-19 and the January 6 hearings that might get me on your radar. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, this is Keith. Welcome to the Ghetto Sapien channel, your home of inner city intelligence. Let's get right down to it. It's Monday morning. I just came back from the gym. I need a shower, so I don't want to make this too long. So yeah, I think the government's response to natural disasters and man-made disasters is now bending towards where it's to their advantage. For years, the government, their response to like earthquakes, hurricanes, and tornadoes has been localized for the most part. And that's due to the nature of the disaster. You can look and see the damage a tornado has done. You can look and see the damage an earthquake or something like that has done. And again, it's just usually local to the area. People raise money. They send money through banks and through charities, and a lot gets done that way. The government, though, in the last couple of natural disasters, at least the ones before COVID, we're starting to look more and more incompetent, like they weren't able to get the job done. Remember Katrina back in 2005, like in September, when New Orleans was flooded and they were just scrambling. The federal, local, and state government didn't quite have a good handle on it. For instance, there was the image of the hundreds of buses that were just sitting there in a flood zone. They weren't being used to evacuate people. And then this one guy took it on himself. His name is Jabbar Gibson. He commandeered a bus all by himself. He's 21 years old at the time. He picked up about 70 passengers who were stranded in the New Orleans area and drove them for 13 hours to Houston in safety. He did that all on his own. He was like the hero, and that was like an image, an indelible image that was associated with Katrina and the ineptitude of the government, like I said, federal and state, and just showing the independent and rugged, rugged independence of American citizens. So it made the government look pretty bad, in my opinion, and I think in many people's opinion, because Katrina was a debacle. But I think the government has learned from that, and now is starting to use both man-made catastrophes and maybe natural catastrophes to their advantage. They're no more they're no more competent than they used to be back in the Katrina days. They're just a lot more clever with their marketing and how they use these disasters to their advantage. January 6th is an example of a man-made disaster that happened. And the government, what it did was it took something that was more or less a local event and they blew it up to national prominence because it was to their advantage. Right now they have the January 6 trials that are all skewed in one way. There's no defense. There's no cross-examination of evidence. So it's just really a big propaganda play, but they're using it to their advantage. There were really, there were some bad images out there of the riots in January 6th. People were hurt, but again, the government is using it to curtail your rights, how they blew it up bigger than what it is there were people that weren't even there who are being investigated, who are being subpoenaed and brought before Congress. I've never seen that happen before, that you'd even have to be at a riot in order to, face charges from it. Granted, some of these images are pretty bad from January 6th. You had explosions, you had cops being injured, about 60 police officers, I believe, were injured, or Secret Service. These are pretty bad images of January 6th. You can kind of see why some of the politicians might be upset by what's going on. Yeah, like I said, police officers were injured, fires were set, the flag was burned. So this is not a good image for the January 6 people. Lafayette Church, right across the street from the White House, was set on fire, and the president himself had to retreat to a bunker because of the January 6 protesters. So you can see why they're upset. Oh wait, that's actually one of the things that happened in January 6.
Okay, just want to let you guys know, this is like the sacredest place.
Okay, I did, of course, not show some of the more egregious parts. And there was a riot that went on in January 6th, but what I was actually showing you in the beginning, obviously, wasn't January 6th. It was one of the many riots that happened during 2020. That one was May 29th, and it just so happened to be right in front of the White House. There were barricades, they bust them down, there were fires set, and like I said, there were Secret Service agents attacked. Lafayette Church, right across the street from the White House, was burned. Not burnt to the ground, but definitely a fire was set in it. And President Trump had to be moved to a safe bunker, and he was actually made fun of in a meeting. They called him Bunker Boy. That is how that's how they portrayed the violence that happened all during 2020. And then when you have the protest and a little riot here and there on January 6th, it's an attack on the temple. Like the guy said, like the security guard, as nice as he was, he did let the the cat out of the bag by calling it the most sacred place. And it was, if you're a Fed, if you worship government, yeah, the center of government is Congress, and I guess a citizen a voter, a taxpayer, has no right to sit where Nancy Pelosi sits because she's the high priestess of government, or like I call it, God-verment, when people think government should do the things that their family should do, or maybe things they should pray to God for, if you believe in God. These are not things government should be doing, but people now have looked at government as their savior, and now you can see the people working within government, I guess they see themselves as high priest and priestess, not servants of the people anymore. That's long gone, and I would think that was exposed in that video that I showed you. As far as COVID is concerned, if we lost quite a few rights, or at least democracy, well, the republic is under threat by the use of the events that happened on January 6th. And what I mean under threat, they're trying to influence the future elections by eliminating candidates using January 6th as an excuse. But the pandemic was worse to me. It went on for 2 years. COVID, which I had myself and family members have had also, and we've actually lost 2 family members due to COVID, but I think it's more complications of COVID than COVID itself. It's a bad flu. It really is. So I'm not going to try and downplay that part. But was the government's response, was it justified by the danger that COVID presented? I say no. So many of our rights were violated using the pandemic. We gotta one day sit down and really think about what happened. Your First Amendment rights were destroyed. They shut down churches. Government censorship was off the chain. You weren't allowed to speak about certain things. I don't know if this video may even get censored to some degree. Even though I don't have much of a following to show up on a radar, so this is probably time to push it. But doctors were silenced. Any therapeutics for COVID were just dismissed or crushed, or actually they made it so you couldn't get certain therapeutics, and that was because they were pushing the vaccine, which you couldn't push under emergency powers if there was a therapeutic like ivermectin that was out. So you had to get that out of the way so you can push this billion-dollar experimental drug on people, and push it, they did. People's businesses, private industry got into the act and was forcing people to choose between either a job or take an experimental shot. They have children taking it. They shut down schools. So the government and the mask mandates were everywhere. Only now they're starting to get some pushback from the the judiciary, Supreme Court, saying that like the OSHA has no right to force drugs on people. That's not their place. It's never their power. So we're finally getting some sort of pushback. So the whole pandemic thing's starting to subside. Even though you have like here in Georgia, Gwinnett County, I just heard is going to be pushing a mask mandate for state employees. Well, not state, for their schools and their county employees. They're pushing that again. So they're just never going to stop unless we just start living our lives and just ignoring what they're trying to push on us. I think so much damage was done using the pandemic that if they really do need us to respond to a pandemic that's of an act, say like almost the level of smallpox or something with a really high fatality rate, it's not going to happen. You can have a lot of people who are going to be non-compliant because the government, instead of using the trust people had for them to listen and probably heed their warnings for our health, they blew it because they wanted more power. They wanted to affect elections, which they did using COVID. And they wanted to just push us to see how far we would go, which is also, I think they did with, people wearing masks, definitely give the government the idea that we're a lot more compliant than they thought. It surprised me the level of compliance the government's able to get without passing laws or nothing, just by coming out and saying do A, and so many people did A, B, C, and almost Z. They were enthusiastic in their government compliance. That was kind of frightening, but that was exposed during the pandemic, and I really think the government took note of this. But I hope they also took note that they can't do this again. Like I said, they wasted the trust the American people had on them for their own political means. So when they really need us to listen to them and kind of maybe acquiesce a little bit, I don't think it's going to happen. I think a lot of people are going to push back. I know I am. So I hope it was worth it for the government. But I really do think one of the positive things was it opened up a lot of our eyes to just how nefarious they are and how many games they're willing to play and how far they're willing to push it to roll back our rights and just step all over our God-given rights. But that's my comment. I think that's enough to give the Facebook and YouTube censors something to work with, and they'll probably give me a demerit for this, but it's fine. There's always Rumble and there's Substack, so that's cool. So that's my comment. What's yours? Like, share, comment, and subscribe.